Time moved forward. Whether people wanted it to or not. The kingdom continued functioning. The borders remained secure. The harvests came and went. The people laughed. The people celebrated. The people lived. But Rowan remained trapped in the past. Months had passed since Elena's banishment. Yet her absence still haunted every corner of the palace. He saw her in the gardens. He heard her laughter in empty hallways. He remembered her every time he entered their chambers. Some wounds refused to heal. The Council of Elders noticed. At first, they were patient. Then concerned. Then determined. One morning, the elders gathered before the Alpha. The oldest among them stepped forward. Alpha, the kingdom needs stability. Rowan already knew where the conversation was heading. His expression hardened. The elder continued. The pack needs a Luna. The royal line needs heirs. The future of the kingdom must be secured. Rowan looked away. He had heard these arguments before. Many times. The elder pressed on. You cannot spend the rest of your life mourning. The room fell silent. Finally Rowan spoke. Watch me. Several elders exchanged uneasy glances. The conversation ended there. But they didn't give up. Weeks later, they returned. Then again. And again. Until eventually the pressure became impossible to ignore. Every council meeting became the same discussion. Every gathering ended with the same request. Every elder repeated the same warning. The kingdom needed a Luna. The kingdom needed a future. The kingdom needed heirs. One evening, Rowan finally stopped arguing. Not because he agreed. Because he was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of explaining. Tired of reliving the same pain. When the elders realized he was no longer resisting, they moved quickly. A bride was selected. Lady Serena. The daughter of one of the most influential elders in the kingdom. She was beautiful. Intelligent. Graceful. Everything a future Luna was expected to be. When Rowan first met her, she stood confidently before him. Golden hair. Elegant posture. Perfect manners. The elders watched closely. Waiting. Hoping. Praying. Rowan felt nothing. Not hatred. Not attraction. Not curiosity. Nothing. And somehow that made him feel guilty. Because Serena had done nothing wrong. She wasn't Elena. But she wasn't responsible for that. The wedding was arranged. The kingdom celebrated. The elders smiled. The people cheered. The palace once again welcomed a Luna. Yet throughout the entire ceremony, Rowan felt like a spectator watching someone else's life. When the vows were exchanged, he spoke them. When the celebrations began, he attended. When the guests congratulated him, he thanked them. He fulfilled every duty expected of him. But his heart remained elsewhere. That first night, Serena entered their chambers quietly. She was nervous. Hopeful. Excited. Like any new bride would be. Rowan stood near the window. Looking out at the gardens. The same gardens where everything had once begun. For several moments neither spoke. Then Serena approached carefully. Rowan? He turned. She offered a small smile. One filled with kindness. Not entitlement. Not expectation. Just kindness. I know this wasn't your choice. Rowan remained silent. She continued. I also know you loved her. The words landed heavily between them. Neither spoke Elena's name. Neither needed to. Serena lowered her eyes. I don't expect miracles. A sad smile touched her lips. I don't expect you to love me tomorrow. Rowan stared at her. For the first time, genuine surprise crossed his face. Most people would have demanded more. Most people would have complained. Serena simply looked tired. Like someone accepting a difficult truth. I know your heart is still with her. The honesty in her voice made it impossible to look away. She took a breath. Then smiled softly. So I'll wait. Rowan frowned. Wait? She nodded. As long as it takes. The room fell quiet. I'll wait for you to heal. She smiled again. I'll wait for you to smile. Her eyes softened. And maybe one day. She hesitated. You'll look at me the way you used to look at her. For the first time in months, Rowan felt something close to sadness for someone other than himself. Because Serena deserved better than waiting. She deserved better than hope built on impossible dreams. Yet she stood there offering patience instead of demands. The days became weeks. The weeks became months. Serena tried. She truly did. She joined him in the gardens. She sat beside him during meals. She asked about his day. She learned his routines. She remembered the things he liked. She filled their chambers with flowers. She brought books. She brought music. She brought light wherever she went. And Rowan appreciated every effort. But appreciation wasn't love. Every time she laughed, he remembered Elena's laughter. Every time she smiled, he remembered Elena's smile. Every time she reached for his hand, he remembered another hand that was no longer there. The distance remained. Not because Serena failed. Because grief refused to leave. One evening, months after their wedding, Serena found Rowan sitting alone in the gardens. The moonlight illuminated his face. For a moment, he looked older. More tired. More lonely. She sat beside him. Neither spoke immediately. Finally Serena asked quietly. Do you still think about her every day? Rowan stared at the stars. Then answered honestly. Yes. Serena looked down. The answer hurt. But it didn't surprise her. After a moment, she smiled sadly. I thought so. Rowan turned toward her. For the first time, guilt appeared in his eyes. I'm sorry. Serena shook her head. No. Her voice remained gentle. You loved her. She looked toward the moonlit sky. That's not something you should apologize for. The wind moved softly through the gardens. Neither noticed that tears had gathered in Serena's eyes. Because deep down, she was beginning to understand a painful truth. She could become his Luna. She could become his wife. She could spend years beside him. But the place Elena held inside Rowan's heart was still untouched. And perhaps always would be. When Elena opened her eyes, she did not know who she was. She did not know where she was. She did not know how she had arrived there. The world was nothing but fragments. Blurred shapes. Strange faces. Unfamiliar voices. Pain. Confusion. And darkness. For an entire year, she remained trapped inside a deep sleep. The beautiful silver wolf never left her side. Day after day. Month after month. Season after season. He watched over her. Protected her. Waited for her. Many believed she would never wake again. He never accepted that. Every morning he visited her chamber. Every evening he returned. Speaking to her even when she couldn't answer. Telling her about the changing seasons. The flowers blooming outside. The life waiting for her beyond the darkness. And then one morning. She opened her eyes. The entire pack celebrated. The healers cried. The servants thanked the moon goddess. And the silver wolf disappeared from the room. Only to return moments later as a man. A very handsome man. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Powerful. His silver hair reflected the sunlight. His golden eyes carried warmth and relief. For the first time, Elena saw the face belonging to the wolf that had saved her. And strangely, she felt safe. "You're awake." His voice was gentle. Almost afraid she might disappear again. Elena stared at him. Confused. Lost. "Who am I?" The question shattered whatever joy remained in the room. The healers exchanged worried looks. The man remained silent for several seconds. Then he smiled softly. "You are safe." It wasn't an answer. But it was all he could give. Because she remembered nothing. Not her name. Not her past. Not her family. Not her home. Nothing. Her memories had vanished. As though someone had erased her entire life. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. And slowly, she began building a new life. The handsome Alpha gave her a new name. Liana. A name inspired by the climbing flowers that covered the gardens she loved so much. She liked the name. It felt warm. Comforting. Familiar somehow. Even if she didn't know why. The Alpha never pressured her. Never forced memories. Never demanded answers. He simply cared for her. Patiently. Kindly. Steadily. Like someone tending a wounded soul. During her recovery, she discovered something surprising. She possessed remarkable knowledge of healing. Plants fascinated her. Herbs came naturally to her. Medicine seemed familiar even when nothing else did. She could identify healing leaves without hesitation. Mix remedies instinctively. Treat fevers. Heal wounds. Ease pain. The pack healers were astonished. The Alpha seemed less surprised. Instead, he watched her with quiet admiration. As though seeing her become herself again. Every day she spent time in the healing gardens. Growing herbs. Preparing medicines. Helping the sick. The work made her happy. And whenever she smiled, the Alpha smiled too. For 2 years, he remained beside her. Never demanding anything. Never expecting anything. Simply there. A constant presence. A steady hand. A safe place. At first she believed he was merely a respected wolf within the pack. Nothing more. Then one day she entered the main square. The moment the handsome man appeared, everyone bowed. Warriors lowered their heads. Servants stepped aside. Children smiled proudly. Confusion crossed her face. She looked around. Then back at him. Why are they bowing? The Alpha laughed. A genuine laugh. One she rarely heard. Because they should. She frowned. That's not an answer. It is if you're avoiding questions. Her eyes narrowed. Who are you? The warriors nearby looked horrified. The Alpha looked amused. Finally he sighed. I am Alpha Kale. Silence. Liana blinked. Then blinked again. You are the Alpha? Yes. You never told me. You never asked. For some reason, that answer made her laugh. And Kale found himself staring at her far longer than necessary. Because her laughter had become one of his favorite sounds. The years continued passing. The bond between them deepened. They walked together. Worked together. Spent evenings in the gardens together. And little by little, feelings began growing inside Kale's heart. Feelings he had been fighting for a very long time. One spring afternoon, they sat beneath blooming trees. Sunlight filtered through the leaves. Flowers danced in the breeze. The world felt peaceful. Liana was explaining the benefits of a healing plant. Kale wasn't listening. Not really. He was watching her. The way her eyes brightened when she spoke. The way her hands moved when she became excited. The way she smiled without realizing it. His heart had surrendered long ago. Finally, he reached for her hand. The unexpected touch stopped her sentence. Liana looked up. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither spoke. The world seemed unusually quiet. Cale's thumb brushed softly against her fingers. His expression became serious. Vulnerable. Honest. Something she had rarely seen. Liana. His voice was almost a whisper. She felt her heartbeat quicken. I love you. The words hung between them. Simple. Powerful. Real. Cale smiled softly. I think I've loved you for a very long time. His eyes never left hers. Long before I was brave enough to admit it. The air suddenly felt different. The garden seemed to disappear. Liana stared at him. And then, pain exploded inside her head. Her smile vanished. Her body froze. Images crashed into her mind. A palace. A wedding. A man. A garden. Twin babies crying. Chains. Prison walls. Tears. A promise. A betrayal. Rowan. The name struck her like lightning. Her breath caught. Another memory followed. Then another. Then hundreds more. Years of her life flooding back all at once. Elena stumbled backward. Her entire body shaking. No. Cale immediately stood. Concern flooded his face. Liana? But she wasn't Liana. Not anymore. She was Elena. Luna Elena. Mother of twins. Wife of Alpha Rowan. The woman who had lost everything. The memories came faster. The prison. The hunger. The grief. The order. The babies. Her babies. A broken sound escaped her throat. Tears filled her eyes. Cale stepped toward her. What's wrong? She looked at him. But she wasn't truly seeing him. She was seeing ghosts. She was seeing the past. She was seeing a life she had forgotten. A life that suddenly felt impossible to bear. Without warning, she turned and ran. Straight out of the garden. Straight into the forest. Straight into the chaos of memories she could no longer escape. And behind her, Alpha Cale stood frozen. Watching the woman he loved disappear. Not understanding that in a single heartbeat, everything had changed. Elena ran. Or perhaps, Liana ran. She no longer knew which name belonged to her. The forest rushed past in a blur. Branches scratched against her arms. Roots caught at her feet. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Because every step brought another memory. Another piece of the life she had forgotten. A garden. A wedding. A promise. A smile. Rowan. The name echoed through her mind. Then came another memory. 2 tiny cries. 2 tiny boys. Her boys. A sharp pain tore through her chest. A sob escaped her lips. No. She stumbled. Nearly falling. The memories kept coming. The prison. The hunger. The loneliness. The grief. The unbearable emptiness that had followed. Everything she had forgotten. Everything she had escaped. Everything she had survived. And now it was all back. Every painful piece. Every beautiful piece. Every broken piece. Liana. Cale's voice echoed through the trees. Close. Too close. She didn't stop. Liana. The concern in his voice only made her cry harder. Because Kale knew nothing. Nothing about the woman she had been. Nothing about the life she had lost. Nothing about the ghosts chasing her now. Her vision blurred. The world spun. The memories became too much. Too many. Too fast. Too painful. Suddenly her legs gave out. She fell to her knees. The impact sent pain through her body. This time she felt it. But not enough to pull her away from the storm inside her mind. A few moments later, hurried footsteps approached. Then stopped. Liana. Kale's voice was softer now. Careful. Worried. She kept her head lowered. Unable to look at him. Unable to explain. Unable to breathe properly. Kale immediately knelt beside her. What happened? No answer. His concern deepened. Were you hurt? Still no answer. The silence frightened him more than any response could have. For 2 years, he had never seen her like this. Never. Not once. Even during her hardest days. Even during her darkest moments. Nothing had ever reduced her to this. Her shoulders shook violently. A broken sob escaped her. Without thinking, Kale reached for her hands. They were ice cold. Liana. His voice remained calm. Steady. The same steady voice that had guided her through countless nightmares. Look at me. Slowly, she lifted her head. The moment Kale saw her face, his heart clenched. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Pure anguish filled her eyes. Not confusion. Not fear. Pain. The kind of pain that came from losing something precious. Something irreplaceable. What happened? He asked again. This time his voice was almost a whisper. For several moments, Elena simply stared at him. At the man who had saved her. Protected her. Waited for her. Cared for her when she had nothing. A man who deserved answers. Yet she didn't know where to begin. How could she explain 3 years of memories in a single sentence? How could she explain a life she herself had only just remembered? Finally, she spoke. The words were barely audible. My name. Her voice broke. Kale waited patiently. My name isn't Liana. Silence. The forest itself seemed to stop breathing. Kale stared at her. Not in disbelief. Not in anger. Simply trying to understand. Liana. She shook her head. Fresh tears spilled down her face. No. Her hands trembled. That's not my name. Kale remained silent. Listening. Giving her room to continue. The way he always did. For several moments she struggled to speak. Then finally. My name is Elena. The words hung between them. Heavy. Painful. Real. Kale's expression softened. Not because he understood. He didn't. Not yet. But because saying those words had clearly cost her something. A great deal. Elena, he repeated gently. Testing the name. Respecting it. If it was hers, then it mattered. Another sob escaped her. And suddenly everything she'd been holding back shattered. I remembered. The words poured out. I remembered everything. Kale's eyes widened slightly. Not with shock. With understanding. Now he finally realized what had happened. The memories. The memories she had lost. They had returned. And whatever she had remembered. It was hurting her. Deeply. He squeezed her trembling hands. I'm here. Simple words. But sincere. Always sincere. Elena closed her eyes. More tears slipped down her face. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Kale asked quietly. What did you remember? The question carried no pressure. No demand. Only concern. Only patience. Only the desire to help. Elena's breathing became uneven. The answer felt impossible. Yet the memories refused to stay buried. A husband. A palace. A prison. 2 babies. 2 tiny boys. Her boys. A fresh wave of grief hit her. She doubled over. A cry escaping her lips. Immediately Kale moved closer. Alarm flashing across his face. Leah. He stopped himself. Not because he forgot her old name, but because he remembered the new truth she had given him. Elena. His voice was gentle. Careful. What is it? Tears streamed endlessly down her face. She pressed a trembling hand against her chest, as though trying to hold together a heart breaking all over again. Then she whispered the words that would change everything. I had children. Kale froze. Not from judgment. Not from jealousy. But from sorrow. The grief in her voice was devastating. No mother should sound like that. No mother should hurt like that. And somehow, he knew there was more. Much more. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Elena lifted tear-filled eyes to his. And for the first time since she ran from the garden, she spoke the name that haunted her memories. Rowan. Kale listened. Quietly. Patiently. Without interruption. Because he knew the story was only beginning. And whatever pain Elena had carried all these years, she would not carry it alone anymore. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The forest was quiet. The world seemed to hold its breath. Elena sat on the cold ground, wrapped in Kale's cloak. Her eyes stared into the darkness. Lost between the memories she had recovered and the pain they had brought back. Kale remained beside her. Silent. Patient. Waiting. Not because he wanted answers, but because she looked as though speaking itself hurt. And eventually, it did. My sons were innocent. The words came suddenly. Barely above a whisper. Yet they shattered the silence. Kale turned toward her. Tears filled Elena's eyes. My sons did nothing. Her voice trembled. They hadn't even opened their eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. And they died anyway. Kale felt his chest tighten. But he said nothing. There was nothing he could say. Nothing that could lessen a mother's pain. Elena lowered her gaze. I carried them for months. Her fingers curled into the fabric of the cloak. I talked to them every day. More tears fell. I dreamed about them. Her breathing became uneven. I dreamed about watching them grow. The words nearly broke her. And all of it was taken away. Silence followed. Heavy. Painful. Unforgiving. Then she began telling her story. The story nobody had wanted to hear. The story nobody had allowed her to tell. She told Kale about the palace. About the gardens. About the serious boy she met when they were young. The boy who hated celebrations. The boy who slowly became her friend. Then her first love. Then her husband. She told him about the years they spent together. The promises they made. The dreams they shared. The future they planned. And for a moment, despite all the pain, she remembered how happy she had been. Then she told him about the war. The months Rowan spent away. The loneliness. The joy of discovering she was carrying twins. The excitement she felt waiting for him to return. And finally, she reached the day everything fell apart. Her voice immediately became fragile. The entire palace was celebrating. Kale listened quietly. The servants were smiling. A tear rolled down her face. Everyone was happy. Her breathing faltered. Then Rowan walked into the room. The memory felt as sharp as a blade. He looked at the babies. Her hands trembled. He didn't smile. Another tear followed. He didn't hold them. Her voice cracked. He didn't even look at me. The forest seemed to grow colder. Then came the memory she would carry for the rest of her life. The elders accused me of betrayal. Her voice was barely audible. They said I wasn't faithful. Pain flashed across her face. They said the children weren't his. Cale's expression darkened. Elena closed her eyes. I waited for him to ask me if it was true. A tear slid down her cheek. I waited for him to look at me. Her voice broke. I waited for him to give me a chance. The silence that followed was unbearable. But she continued. He never did. The words felt like a wound reopening. He believed them. Fresh tears spilled down her face. He believed them without hearing a single word from me. Cale lowered his gaze. For the first time, he understood that the deepest wound wasn't only the loss of her children. It was the betrayal. The man she loved had never trusted her enough to ask. He made his choice. Her voice trembled. And my sons paid the price. Neither of them spoke for a long time. The wind moved softly through the trees. The moon hung high above them. And somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. Eventually Elena wiped her tears away. Slowly. Carefully. As though she had run out of tears to shed. When she spoke again, her voice sounded different. The grief was still there. The heartbreak remained. But something else had appeared beside it. Something colder. Something harder. I loved him. Her eyes remained fixed on the darkness. I loved Rowan with everything I had. Her hands clenched. And he destroyed me. The words carried no anger. Only truth. A terrible truth. I lost my children. Her voice shook. I lost my home. Another tear escaped. I lost everything. The forest remained silent. No answer came. Because there was no answer. Nothing that could justify what had happened. Eventually Elena lifted her head. Her eyes met Cale's. I don't want love anymore. Cale remained silent. Listening. The way he always had. I don't want another mate. Her voice was steady. I don't want another husband. The words felt final. I don't want promises. Cale looked at her for a long moment. Not arguing. Not defending himself. Not trying to change her mind. Because he understood that this wasn't about him. It was about wounds that had never healed. Elena slowly rose to her feet. The moonlight illuminated her face. I don't want happiness. She swallowed hard. I want strength. Cale stood as well. His golden eyes remained fixed on her. I want power. The wind stirred around them. For the first time since her memories returned, she looked certain of something. Certain of what she wanted. Certain of where she was going. Cale studied her carefully. And why? He asked quietly. Elena's expression hardened. The answer came without hesitation. Because I'm going back. The words echoed through the night. Back to the people who destroyed my life. Her hands clenched into fists. Back to the pack. A dangerous calm settled over her. Back to Rowan. The name no longer sounded like love. It sounded like unfinished business. A long silence followed. Then Elena looked directly at Cale. For the first time that night, she asked something of him. Help me. Cale's eyes widened slightly. I don't want comfort. Her voice was firm. I don't want sympathy. The determination in her eyes was unmistakable. I want to become stronger. The wind swept through the trees. I want to become powerful enough that nobody will ever be able to destroy me again. Silence filled the forest. Then Kale stepped forward. His expression calm. Steady. Certain. And though he knew the road ahead would be dangerous, he also knew she had already made her decision. The woman who had once been broken was standing again. And this time, she was standing with purpose. Elena did not sleep. Not even for a moment. The memories were too fresh. Too painful. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw them. Two tiny faces. Two tiny cries. A future stolen before it had even begun. By the time the first rays of sunlight appeared above the horizon, she was already awake. Standing alone at the edge of a cliff. Watching the sun rise. The world looked peaceful. Beautiful. As though nothing terrible had ever happened. As though hearts were not broken every day. As though betrayal did not exist. Footsteps approached from behind. Steady. Unhurried. Elena didn't need to turn around. She already knew who it was. Kale stopped beside her. For several moments, neither spoke. They simply watched the sunrise together. Finally, Kale broke the silence. You didn't sleep. It wasn't a question. Elena shook her head. No. Kale nodded. As though he had expected that answer. The silence returned. Then Elena spoke. Will you help me? Kale looked at her. She was no longer crying. No longer trembling. The grief was still there. He could see it. But now it was hidden beneath something stronger. Determination. I meant what I said last night. Her eyes remained fixed on the horizon. I want strength. Kale studied her carefully. Strength for what? Elena finally turned toward him. Her expression was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes after surviving the worst pain imaginable. I want to return. Kale remained silent. I want them to see me. The wind lifted strands of her hair. I want them to know I survived. A shadow crossed her face. And I want them to regret what they did. The words lingered between them. Kale didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked out across the mountains. Thinking. Measuring. Understanding. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady. Revenge is expensive. Elena frowned. Kale continued. It takes years from people. It steals their peace. It becomes the only thing they think about. His golden eyes met hers. And when it's over, many discover it didn't heal them. Elena looked away. Because part of her knew he was right. But another part didn't care. Not anymore. They never paid for what they did. Her voice was quiet. My children never received justice. Kale saw the pain behind the words. The wound was still bleeding. Still open. Still raw. And perhaps it always would be. I understand. Elena shook her head. No. Fresh tears appeared in her eyes. You don't. The words escaped before she could stop them. Kale didn't react. Didn't take offense. Didn't argue. Because he knew she wasn't trying to hurt him. She was hurting. A mother carrying impossible grief. My sons are gone. Her voice trembled. I never got to hold them. A tear rolled down her cheek. I never got to watch them grow. Another followed. I never got to hear them call me mother. Kale's heart ached. Not for himself. For her. Only her. The silence stretched. Then Elena wiped her eyes. Almost angrily. As though she was tired of crying. Tired of breaking. Tired of being weak. I can't change the past. Her voice hardened. But I can change what comes next. Kale watched her carefully. The determination was real. This wasn't grief speaking. This wasn't anger speaking. This was a decision. One she had already made. Finally, Kale asked. What exactly are you asking from me? Elena didn't hesitate. Train me. The wind swept across the cliff. I want to learn everything. Her eyes locked onto his. How to fight. How to lead. How to defend myself. The conviction in her voice was undeniable. I never want to stand helplessly in front of people like them again. For several moments, Kale said nothing. Then he sighed. A long, thoughtful sigh. Not because he disagreed, but because he understood what this would mean. Training Elena wouldn't simply change her abilities. It would change her future. The path ahead would become dangerous. Unforgiving. Perhaps even bloody. Yet when he looked into her eyes, he saw something undeniable. Resolve. The same resolve that had carried her through exile. Through grief. Through survival. Through rebirth. And he realized something important. This choice wasn't his to make. It was hers. Finally, Kale nodded. A small movement. But one that changed everything. I'll train you. Elena's breath caught. Not because she was surprised, but because hearing the words made it real. Kale continued. But not for revenge. She frowned. His expression remained calm. If you are going to become strong. His voice grew firmer. Then become strong for yourself. The wind moved through the trees below. Become strong because nobody should ever be able to break you again. Elena held his gaze. Neither looking away. Neither speaking. Then Kale extended his hand toward her. Your training starts today. For the first time since her memories returned. Something stirred inside Elena. Not happiness. Not peace. But purpose. She looked at the offered hand. Then took it. The moment their hands met, an unspoken agreement formed between them. Teacher and student. Alpha and warrior. Two people walking toward an uncertain future. Together. Far away. Beyond mountains. Beyond forests. Beyond the life she had built with Kale. A kingdom continued without her. A palace still stood. And Alpha still carried the weight of his choices. Unaware that the woman he believed lost forever had finally remembered who she was. And was already finding her way back. Training hurt. Far more than Elena expected. By the end of the first day, every muscle in her body ached. Her arms burned. Her legs trembled. Even breathing felt difficult. Yet she returned the next morning. And the morning after that. And the morning after that. She never complained. Not once. Because pain no longer frightened her. She had already survived pain far worse than this. Kale noticed. Of course he noticed. He noticed everything. The way she pushed herself beyond exhaustion. The way she refused to rest. The way she treated every lesson as though her life depended on it. Perhaps because part of her believed it did. Weeks passed. Then months. And Elena changed. Slowly. Steadily. The woman who had once spent her days tending healing gardens now spent her mornings training with warriors. Learning discipline. Learning strategy. Learning combat. Learning how to survive. At first, she lost every sparring match. Every single one. The warriors tried to go easy on her. That ended quickly. Because Elena hated being treated gently. The moment she realized they were holding back, she demanded they stop. If I fall, I fall. Her voice had been firm. But don't insult me by pretending I'm fragile. After that, nobody held back. And Elena improved. Fast. Faster than anyone expected. Every defeat became a lesson. Every mistake became a weapon. Every failure became fuel. The grief inside her had nowhere to go. So she poured it into training. Into discipline. Into strength. Into becoming someone new. One afternoon, nearly a year after her memories returned, Elena stood in the center of a training field. A wooden sword rested in her hand. Across from her stood one of Kale's strongest warriors. A massive man named Darius. The surrounding warriors watched quietly. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Darius attacked first. Fast. Powerful. Relentless. A year ago, Elena would have been on the ground within seconds. Today was different. She moved. Not perfectly. Not effortlessly. But confidently. Avoiding the first strike. Then the second. Then the third. The watching warriors exchanged surprised glances. Darius pressed harder. Elena adapted. The rhythm of battle no longer felt foreign. It felt natural. A lesson. A conversation. A puzzle waiting to be solved. Finally. Crack. Her wooden sword struck Darius's wrist. His weapon flew from his hand. Silence. Complete silence. Darius stared at the empty space where his sword had been. The training field fell silent. Complete silence. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The warriors looked from Darius to Elena. As though trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Then Darius slowly raised his head. A smile appeared on his face. Not a mocking smile. Not a polite smile. A respectful one. The smile of a warrior acknowledging another warrior. He bowed his head. You win. The words echoed across the training grounds. For several seconds, the crowd remained stunned. Then cheers erupted. Loud. Proud. Earned. Warriors struck their fists against their chests. Others shouted her name. Some laughed in disbelief. Not because they doubted her. But because they remembered where she had started. The woman who could barely hold a training sword. The woman who had collapsed after her first lesson. The woman who had lost every match. Now she stood victorious. Elena's chest rose and fell heavily. Sweat covered her skin. Every muscle in her body ached. Yet she remained standing. Strong. Unshaken. Across the field, Kale watched quietly. Pride filled his golden eyes. Not because she had defeated Darius. But because he knew what that victory truly meant. This was not the victory of a warrior. It was the victory of a survivor. A woman who had every reason to break. A woman who had every reason to surrender. A woman who had lost everything. Yet somehow, she had stood back up. Again and again. Until she became stronger than anyone expected. Even herself. Elena looked around the training grounds. At the warriors cheering for her. At the people who respected her. At the life she had built with her own hands. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar. Not happiness. Not peace. Something deeper. Confidence. The belief that she could protect herself. The belief that she would never again be helpless before the cruelty of others. The belief that she was becoming the woman she needed to be. Darius retrieved his fallen sword and approached her. When he stopped before her, he placed a fist over his chest. A warrior's salute. One given only to equals. The training grounds became quiet once more. Then, one by one, the other warriors followed. A sea of warriors saluting her. respecting her, honoring her. Elena stared at them in surprise. She had never asked for their respect, never demanded it. Yet somehow, she had earned it. Kale stepped forward. His gaze met hers. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. The moment said everything. The broken woman who had arrived in their pack no longer existed. In her place stood someone new. Someone stronger. Someone forged by loss. Someone tempered by hardship. Someone who refused to break. And as the cheers continued around her, Elena stood taller than she had in years. Not because she had won a fight, but because she had finally proven something to herself. She was no longer a victim of her past. Winning the respect of warriors changed many things. But not everything. Because Elena had never wanted strength for the sake of fighting. Fighting was only one form of power. And she intended to master them all. Months passed after her victory over Darius. The story spread quickly throughout Kale's territory. The healers spoke about her knowledge. The warriors spoke about her skill. The elders spoke about her wisdom. And the merchants. The merchants became very interested in her. It began with herbs. Simple herbs. The same herbs she had spent years growing in the healing gardens. For a long time, Elena had only used them to help the sick. Then one day, while organizing supplies, she noticed something. The neighboring packs were constantly buying medicine. And paying enormous prices for remedies that weren't even very good. The realization struck her immediately. They needed medicine. She knew how to make medicine. The opportunity was obvious. Within weeks, Elena began expanding the healing gardens. Within months, the gardens became fields. And the fields became an entire network of cultivation. Plants from distant regions were imported. Rare herbs were carefully grown. Experienced healers were hired and trained. Every remedy was tested personally by Elena before being sold. Nothing left her workshops unless she trusted it. The results were astonishing. People came from neighboring packs. Then from distant territories. Then from places no one expected. Warriors seeking treatment. Mothers seeking cures for their children. Elders seeking relief from pain. Every day, the lines grew longer. And every day, Elena helped as many as she could. One afternoon, a mother arrived carrying a young boy. The child was burning with fever. The local healers had already given up. They believed he would not survive the night. Elena examined him personally. Prepared the medicine herself. Then remained beside him until dawn. 3 days later, the fever vanished. The boy recovered completely. The grateful mother told everyone she met. Then those people told others. And the story spread. Soon people began speaking her name with admiration. Not because she was beautiful. Not because she was connected to an alpha. But because she saved lives. Because she cared. Because she never turned away someone in need. For the first time in many years, Elena became known for something other than tragedy. She became known for healing. But Elena didn't stop there. Because she had learned an important lesson. Healing people was powerful. But building something lasting was even more powerful. So she expanded again. The profits from the medicines funded new projects. Tailors received better materials. Blacksmiths received better equipment. Farmers received better tools. Merchants received support to expand their routes. Every successful business strengthened the territory. Every successful trade brought more wealth. Every new opportunity created jobs. The pack began prospering in ways it never had before. Soon merchants from distant lands traveled for weeks just to negotiate with Elena. At first, many were surprised. They expected an elderly business owner. Or a wealthy noblewoman. Instead they found a former healer who understood every detail of her work. A woman who knew the value of every coin. Every crop. Every shipment. Every contract. And she was good. Very good. Some merchants tried to cheat her. They failed. Others tried to intimidate her. They failed too. The woman who had survived exile, grief, and loss was not easily intimidated. One merchant left a negotiation shaking his head. I've never met anyone who notices every mistake. The others agreed. Elena's reputation grew. Not only as a healer. Not only as a warrior. But as a businesswoman. Years passed. And with every passing year, her influence expanded. The healing centers multiplied. Trade routes increased. Markets flourished. Villages prospered. The people trusted her. Not because they were ordered to. But because she had earned that trust. One evening, Elena stood on a balcony overlooking the largest marketplace in the territory. Lanterns illuminated the streets below. People laughed. Children ran between stalls. Merchants proudly displayed their goods. Life. Prosperity. Growth. Everything she saw had once been impossible. Footsteps approached. Kale. He stopped beside her. For several moments, they simply watched the market below. Then Kale spoke. You've changed this territory. Elena shook her head. No. A small smile touched her lips. The people changed it. Kale looked at her. The same answer she always gave. The same humility she never lost. Yet both of them knew the truth. Without Elena, none of this would have happened. The market below was living proof. For a while, neither spoke. Then Kale's gaze drifted toward the bustling streets. Do you realize something? Elena raised an eyebrow. What? Kale smiled slightly. People no longer speak about you as a healer. She frowned. They don't? No. His golden eyes reflected the lights below. They speak about you as a leader. The words lingered between them. Elena looked back toward the marketplace. Toward the businesses. The healers. The warriors. The families. The people whose lives had become connected to hers. For the first time, she truly saw it. What she had built. Not with revenge. Not with anger. Not with fear. But with determination. With hard work. With vision. And as the lanterns glowed beneath the night sky, a realization quietly settled inside her. Strength was not found only in a sword. Sometimes. The greatest power came from building something that could not be destroyed. Success has a strange habit. It refuses to stay hidden. No matter how hard someone tries to avoid attention. Success always finds a way to be seen. And Elena's success was becoming impossible to ignore. What began as a small healing garden had become something far greater. Her medicines were now traded across multiple territories. Her healers traveled to distant villages. Her merchants managed routes stretching farther every year. People spoke her name in markets. In taverns. In council halls. In alpha gatherings. Everywhere. The woman once known as Liana had become something else entirely. A force. A name. A reputation. And with reputation came opportunity. One spring morning, Elena sat inside her study reviewing trade reports. Stacks of parchment covered her desk. Numbers. Routes. Contracts. Inventories. The work never ended. Not that she minded. A knock interrupted her concentration. Come in. The door opened. One of her senior merchants entered. A broad smile stretched across his face. Immediately, Elena became suspicious. Whenever people entered smiling like that, they usually wanted something. What happened? The merchant bowed respectfully. We've received another request. Elena sighed. From where? The Eastern Territories. Her eyebrow lifted. The Eastern Territories? The merchant nodded eagerly. They want exclusive trading rights. Elena leaned back in her chair. That was the third request this month. And it wasn't even the largest one. Her influence was growing faster than she anticipated. Not because she chased power, but because people trusted quality. And Elena refused to compromise quality. Every medicine carried her seal. Every shipment met her standards. Every agreement was honored. That trust had become more valuable than gold. By midday, she was walking through the main marketplace. The transformation still amazed her. Years ago, the territory had been stable. Now it was thriving. Stalls filled every corner. Craftsmen sold their work. Children ran through the streets. Visitors arrived daily. The economy had become stronger than anyone imagined. As Elena passed, people greeted her warmly. Not out of fear. Not out of obligation. But genuine respect. A baker waved. A blacksmith bowed. Several children excitedly shouted her name. Elena smiled and waved back. Something she never would have imagined doing years ago. Not because she had changed completely, but because she had healed enough to appreciate moments like these. Enough to enjoy them. At least a little. Later that evening, a council meeting was held. Kale sat at the head of the table. Elena sat beside the senior advisors. Maps covered the table. Trade routes. Border reports. Economic forecasts. The discussion continued for hours. Finally, one of the elders spoke. The neighboring territories are watching us. The room grew quiet. Another advisor nodded. They're trying to understand how we've grown this quickly. A third elder smiled. They already know. Several people looked confused. The elder's gaze shifted toward Elena. The answer is sitting right there. The room erupted with agreement. Elena immediately frowned. No. Several people laughed softly. It was always the same. Whenever someone praised her, she rejected it. Whenever someone credited her, she redirected the praise. The elder shook his head. You created opportunities. Another advisor nodded. You created trade. A third added. You created prosperity. Elena opened her mouth to object. Then stopped. Because arguing would accomplish nothing. The room had already made up its mind. Kale watched quietly. A faint smile touched his lips. Not because he enjoyed seeing her embarrassed, but because he remembered the woman who arrived with nothing. No memories. No family. No future. Now look at her. A healer. A warrior. A merchant. A leader. One of the most respected people in the territory. The transformation was extraordinary. And it wasn't finished. Not even close. That realization became even clearer a few weeks later. A messenger arrived from a distant territory. Then another. And another. Until requests were arriving almost daily. Trade proposals. Partnerships. Invitations. Meetings. All addressed to Elena. One afternoon, she stared at a mountain of unopened letters. Then looked at Kale. This is ridiculous. Kale looked amused. You've said that every day for 2 months. Because it's true. Another letter was placed on the pile. Elena groaned. Kale actually laughed. A rare sound. One she heard more often these days. The sight made Elena shake her head. You think this is funny? A little. The answer came too quickly. She narrowed her eyes. Kale looked entirely unapologetic. For a brief moment, the atmosphere felt lighter. Easier. Neither of them mentioned the past. Neither of them spoke about Rowan. Or revenge. Or loss. Because life had continued moving forward. And Elena had continued growing. But while Elena was building something remarkable. Far beyond Kale's territory. Far beyond the thriving markets. Far beyond the flourishing trade routes. Whispers were beginning to spread. Whispers about a woman. A healer. A warrior. A merchant. A leader. A woman whose name was becoming impossible to ignore. And eventually, those whispers would reach ears that had not heard her name in years. Ears belonging to men who once judged her. Men who once condemned her. Men who believed her story had ended long ago. They were wrong. Because Elena's story was only beginning. Power had changed Elena's life. But it had never changed her heart. She still remembered what it felt like to have nothing. To be hungry. To be abandoned. To be alone. Perhaps that was why she never ignored suffering when she saw it. On a warm afternoon, Elena was returning from a successful trade meeting in a neighboring territory. Several guards rode alongside her carriage. Behind them followed servants carrying records, supplies, and gifts received during the journey. The road was quiet. Peaceful. Until a faint voice stopped them. Please. The voice was weak. Barely audible. Please help me. Elena immediately looked toward the roadside. An old woman sat beneath a dying tree. Her clothes were torn. Her hair was tangled. Her face was lined with age and hardship. She looked exhausted. As though life itself had worn her down. The guards exchanged uncertain glances. One stepped forward. My lady, we should continue. Elena frowned. The old woman looked as though she hadn't eaten in days. Perhaps longer. Without hesitation, Elena raised her hand. Stop the carriage. The guards obeyed immediately. Elena stepped down. The old woman looked up at her. Their eyes met. For a strange moment, neither spoke. Then Elena smiled gently. Come with us. The old woman's eyes widened. Truly? Of course. Elena turned toward her servants. Help her into the carriage. Within minutes, food and water were brought. The old woman ate slowly at first. Then hungrily. As though she could scarcely believe the meal was real. Elena watched quietly. Saying nothing. Offering no judgment. Only kindness. By the time they reached Elena's estate, the sun was beginning to set. The old woman was escorted inside. Immediately, Elena gave instructions. Prepare a bath. The servants bowed. Yes, my lady. Bring fresh clothes. Again, they bowed. And prepare a proper meal. The servants hurried away. Nothing less than the best would be served. That evening, the old woman bathed in warm water. She was given soft clothing. Her tangled hair was carefully brushed. For the first time in many years, she looked comfortable. Human. Seen. When everything was ready, Elena invited her to dine. Not at a separate table. Not in a servant's hall. At her own table. Beside her. Several servants were visibly surprised. But nobody questioned her decision. The meal was magnificent. Fresh bread. Roasted goat. Vegetables. Fruit. Tea. The old woman ate until she could eat no more. Then she leaned back in her chair. A peaceful smile crossing her face. For the first time since Elena had met her, she looked content. Elena smiled. I'm glad. The old woman nodded. You are very kind. Elena shook her head. No. Her expression softened. I simply helped someone who needed help. The old woman studied her carefully, as though seeing something others could not. Finally, Elena asked, "Do you have family?" The old woman smiled faintly. "Once." "Children?" "Once." The answer carried a strange sadness. Elena lowered her gaze. "I'm sorry." The old woman waved the apology away. "No regrets." Silence settled between them. Then Elena asked, "How can I help you?" The old woman chuckled softly. "You already have." Elena frowned. "You need shelter." "I have shelter." "You need food." "I have food." "You need clothes." "I have clothes." The old woman gestured toward herself. Everything Elena had provided. A smile touched her lips. What more could I ask for? Elena sat quietly, unsure what to say. Then the old woman spoke again. "Perhaps it is my turn." Elena blinked. "Your turn?" The old woman nodded. "To give you something." Elena smiled politely. "You don't owe me anything." The old woman simply extended her hand. "Come closer." Something in her voice felt different. Ancient. Powerful. Elena hesitated, then moved closer. The old woman gently took her hand. The moment their skin touched, a brilliant light exploded through the room. Wind burst outward. The candles flickered wildly. The servants cried out in alarm. Power surged through Elena's body. Not pain. Not heat. Something else. Something vast. Something ancient. Images flashed before her eyes. Mountains. Oceans. Stars. Forests older than kingdoms. Knowledge. Wisdom. Secrets. Thousands upon thousands of memories that did not belong to her. Elena gasped. The energy continued flowing. Through her hands. Through her veins. Through her soul. She could feel it. Power to heal. Power to understand. Power to sense life itself. The old woman remained perfectly calm. As though this had always been meant to happen. The light grew brighter. 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 Until it illuminated the entire chamber. Then suddenly. Silence. The light vanished. The wind disappeared. Everything became still. Elena's breathing was ragged. Her heart raced. The old woman released her hand. A peaceful smile rested on her face. "What was that?" The old woman's eyes sparkled. "The gift that was always meant for you." Elena stared at her. Confused. Shocked. Unable to understand. The old woman slowly rose from her chair. Yet somehow she no longer seemed weak. Or fragile. Or poor. She seemed magnificent. Timeless. The room itself felt different around her. The servants watched in stunned silence. Nobody dared move. Nobody dared speak. The old woman looked directly into Elena's eyes. "You have known suffering." Her voice seemed to echo from everywhere at once. "You have known loss." A warm light surrounded her. "You have known betrayal." Elena's breath caught. The old woman's smile deepened. "And yet you chose kindness." The light grew stronger. "That is why you were worthy." Elena stood frozen. The power still pulsing inside her. The wisdom still settling into her mind. The old woman gently touched her cheek. "You will heal more than wounds." Her voice softened. "You will heal kingdoms." A tear slipped down Elena's face. The old woman stepped back. And for a brief moment, she no longer looked like an old woman at all. She looked like something far greater. Something divine. Something eternal. Then the light consumed her completely. And she vanished. Gone. As though she had never been there. The room fell silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Only Elena remained standing in the center of the chamber. Her hand pressed against her chest. Feeling the new power flowing through her. Feeling the wisdom settling within her. Feeling her destiny changing. Forever. The next morning, Elena woke before sunrise. For a moment, everything felt normal. The quiet room. The gentle light creeping through the curtains. The familiar sounds of the estate waking for another day. Then she sat up. And immediately knew something had changed. The strange energy was still there. Flowing quietly beneath her skin. Like a river she could not see. But could feel. Elena placed a hand over her chest. The sensation was impossible to describe. Not painful. Not frightening. Just different. As though something inside her had awakened. A knock came at the door. "My lady?" One of the servants. Elena rose from bed. "Come in." The servant entered carrying breakfast. But the moment she looked at Elena, she stopped. Confusion crossed her face. "My lady." Elena frowned. "What is it?" The servant hesitated. "You look." She struggled to find the words. "Different." Elena's frown deepened. "Different how?" "I don't know." The servant looked embarrassed. "You just seem brighter somehow." Elena dismissed the comment. Surely it was her imagination. Yet throughout the morning, similar remarks continued. A gardener paused while speaking to her. A merchant stared a little too long. Several healers exchanged curious glances. Nobody could explain it. Neither could Elena. By midday, she was in one of her healing centers. A long line of patients waited to be seen. Children. Warriors. Mothers. Elders. People from all walks of life. As always, Elena moved among them personally. Listening. Examining. Helping. Then something unusual happened. A young boy was carried into the center. His mother looked terrified. The child was unconscious. His breathing weak. His skin pale. The healers immediately recognized the severity of the situation. The boy was dying. Elena hurried forward. What happened? The healers had already tried everything. Medicines. Treatments. Remedies. Nothing worked. The room grew tense. Everyone understood the truth. The child might not survive. Elena knelt beside him. Instinctively, she reached for his hand. The moment she touched him, a warm sensation rushed through her body. The same sensation she had felt after meeting the mysterious old woman. The energy flowed through her fingers. Into the child. A soft golden light appeared. Faint at first. Barely visible. Then brighter. The surrounding healers gasped. The mother covered her mouth. The room fell silent. Nobody moved. Nobody blinked. The light lasted only a few seconds. Then it disappeared. Just as suddenly as it had appeared. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the boy opened his eyes. A collective gasp filled the room. The mother dropped to her knees. Tears poured down her face. The child looked confused. But alive. Very much alive. The healers stared in disbelief. One elderly healer whispered. Impossible. Another shook his head. I've never seen anything like that. Neither had Elena. She stood frozen. Looking at her own hands. Trying to understand what had happened. trying to understand what she had become. The news spread quickly. Far quicker than Elena wanted. Within days, stories were appearing throughout the territory. Stories about miraculous recoveries. Stories about impossible healings. Stories about Elena. Some called her gifted. Others called her blessed. A few claimed she had been chosen by the heavens themselves. Elena ignored all of it. At least she tried to. Because she still didn't understand the power herself. But one thing became clear. The old woman's gift had been real. Very real. Weeks passed. And the strange abilities continued revealing themselves. Plants grew faster in her presence. Sick animals recovered unusually quickly. People who spent time around her often reported feeling stronger. Healthier. More energetic. The healers were astonished. The scholars were fascinated. The merchants began telling stories. And the stories grew larger with every retelling. One evening, Elena stood in her gardens. The same gardens where she had once learned healing while believing she was Liana. The flowers seemed more vibrant now. The air felt different. Alive. Footsteps approached. Kale. He stopped beside her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Kale asked, "Have you figured it out yet?" Elena smiled faintly. "No." Kale looked at the blooming gardens. "The old woman." Elena nodded. The old woman. Neither of them believed she had been ordinary. Not anymore. The evidence was impossible to ignore. After a moment, Kale spoke again. "Are you afraid?" Elena considered the question. Carefully. Honestly. Then she shook her head. No. Because fear wasn't what she felt. Curiosity. Wonder. Responsibility. Perhaps all three. But not fear. Kale nodded. As though that was the answer he expected. The evening breeze moved through the flowers. The sky above them glowed with fading sunlight. And Elena found herself thinking about the old woman's final words. "You will heal more than wounds." At the time, she hadn't understood. Now she wasn't so sure. Because something was changing. Not only inside her, but around her. The territory was growing stronger. Healthier. More united. And Elena was beginning to realize something important. The greatest power wasn't the ability to destroy. It was the ability to restore. To rebuild. To heal. And perhaps that was the true gift she had been given. A gift far greater than revenge. A gift that would shape the future of kingdoms. Though Elena did not yet know it. The effects of that gift were already spreading beyond Kale's territory. Beyond the trade routes. Beyond the mountains. Toward distant lands where her name was becoming impossible to ignore. And somewhere far away. People were beginning to ask a question. Who was Elena? The question spread from village to village. From merchant to merchant. From kingdom to kingdom. Who was Elena? Some called her a healer. Others called her a merchant. Some called her a warrior. Others called her a miracle. The truth was that she had become all of those things. And more. Without realizing it, Elena had become one of the most influential people in the known world. Not because she conquered kingdoms. Not because she demanded loyalty. Not because she ruled through fear. But because she helped people. And people never forgot kindness. Months passed. Then another year. The healing centers continued expanding. The trade routes multiplied. Entire villages prospered because of her investments. Farmers received better tools. Blacksmiths received better materials. Families received opportunities they never would have had otherwise. Wherever Elena's name traveled, prosperity often followed. And with prosperity came loyalty. One morning, Elena sat in a large meeting hall reviewing reports from distant territories. Maps covered the table. Trade records. Agricultural reports. Medical inventories. Letters from merchants. Letters from leaders. Letters from people she had never met. The pile seemed endless. A servant entered carrying another stack. Elena stared at it. Then at the servant. Then back at the stack. The servant immediately lowered his head. "My apologies, my lady." Elena sighed. "Leave them there." The servant quickly obeyed. After he left, Elena rubbed her temples. The pile seemed to grow larger every day. A soft laugh came from nearby. "Kale." Elena looked up. "You find this amusing?" "A little." She narrowed her eyes. Kale looked entirely unrepentant. "You wanted influence. I wanted stability. You accidentally acquired influence." Elena groaned. Kale smiled. The exchange felt familiar now. Comfortable. Easy. The kind of comfort built over years. Then a knock interrupted them. A messenger entered. He looked nervous. Very nervous. Immediately, Elena sat straighter. Messengers who looked nervous usually carried important news. "What is it?" The messenger swallowed. "My lady." He hesitated. Then continued. "There are visitors." Elena exchanged a glance with Kale. "Visitors?" The messenger nodded. "Several of them." "Merchants?" "No." "Leaders?" "No." The messenger looked increasingly uncomfortable. Finally, he blurted out. "They're rulers." Silence. Complete silence. Elena blinked. Kale raised an eyebrow. The messenger continued nervously. 3 kings. Another pause. 2 queens. Another pause. And a crown prince. Silence returned. The messenger looked as though he wanted to disappear. Elena slowly set down the report she had been reading. "All of them are here?" "Yes, my lady." "At the same time?" "Yes, my lady." Kale looked suspiciously amused. Elena did not. At all. A few minutes later, she entered the reception hall. The room was filled with some of the most powerful people in the region. Kings. Queens. Princes. Leaders whose names appeared in history books. The moment Elena entered, every conversation stopped. All eyes turned toward her. The attention made her uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. She had never enjoyed being the center of attention. One of the kings stepped forward first. An older man with silver hair. To Elena's surprise, he bowed. Not deeply. But enough to show respect. The others followed. Elena immediately looked confused. "You don't need to do that." The silver-haired king smiled. "We disagree." Several rulers nodded. Another queen stepped forward. "We've heard much about you." Elena resisted the urge to sigh. That sentence rarely led to anything simple. The queen continued. "We've heard about your healing centers." A king added. "Your trade routes." Another ruler said. "Your investments." A prince finished. "And your generosity." Elena suddenly understood. This wasn't a social visit. It was business. Very large business. The next several hours passed in discussions. Trade agreements. Partnerships. Medical cooperation. Infrastructure development. Economic planning. The rulers wanted her advice. Her experience. Her assistance. Some wanted healers. Others wanted trade access. A few simply wanted to learn how she had transformed an entire territory. By sunset, Elena felt exhausted. More exhausted than after any battle. As the final meeting concluded, one of the visiting queens lingered behind. She was an elderly woman with kind eyes. She studied Elena for several moments. Then smiled. "You know what they call you?" Elena immediately looked suspicious. "I don't think I want to know." The queen laughed softly. "You probably don't." That answer did not help. At all. Finally, the queen said. "They call you the queen without a throne." Elena stared at her. The queen continued. "You possess influence greater than many monarchs." She gestured toward the meeting hall. "Yet you claim no crown." The title lingered in the air. Queen without a throne. Elena wasn't sure whether she liked it. Or hated it. Perhaps both. The queen smiled warmly. "The funny thing is." Elena raised an eyebrow. "What?" The queen's eyes sparkled. "You don't seem to realize how powerful you've become." After the queen departed, Elena remained alone in the hall. The words echoed in her mind. Power. Influence. Respect. Years ago, she had lost everything. Her title. Her home. Her family. Her future. She had believed her life was over. Yet somehow, she had built something even greater. Not a kingdom. Not a throne. Something stronger. A legacy. One built by her own hands. One earned rather than inherited. And as the last rays of sunlight disappeared beyond the horizon, a thought quietly crossed her mind. The woman who had once been cast aside by the world had become someone the world could no longer ignore. The estate was quiet. Most of the servants had retired for the evening. The markets had closed. The visitors had departed. And for the first time in days, Elena was alone with her thoughts. She stood on a balcony overlooking the sleeping city below. Lanterns glowed softly in the darkness. The sight usually brought her peace. Tonight, it brought questions. A familiar set of footsteps approached. Steady. Unhurried. Kale. He stopped beside her. For a while, neither spoke. The silence between them had never been uncomfortable. Eventually, Elena broke it. "Do you remember the night I got my memories back?" Kale looked at her. Of course. How could he forget? It was one of the most painful nights of her life. Elena stared into the distance. "I told you I wanted revenge." Kale remained quiet. Listening. "I wanted Rowan to suffer." Her voice was calm. "I wanted the elders to suffer." The wind moved through her hair. "I wanted everyone who hurt me to suffer." Kale nodded once. Because it was true. She had. For a long moment, Elena said nothing. Then she surprised herself. "I don't think I want that anymore." The words settled into the night. Kale studied her face carefully. Not questioning. Not interrupting. Simply listening. Elena folded her arms. "When I first remembered everything." Her voice softened. The pain was so overwhelming. Images flashed through her mind. The prison. The accusations. The twins. The loss. "I thought revenge was the only thing that would make it better." A sad smile touched her lips. But it didn't. Kale remained silent, allowing her to continue. "I became stronger." She looked toward the city. "I became wealthier. I became more powerful." Her gaze drifted across the glowing streets below. And somewhere along the way, she paused. "I stopped waking up angry." The realization felt strange. Unexpected. But true. The hatred that once consumed her wasn't gone. Yet it no longer controlled her. It no longer defined her. She had built too much. Helped too many people. Created too much good. Cale finally spoke. And how do you feel now? Elena considered the question carefully. The answer took time. Finally. Tired. Cale blinked. Tired? She nodded. Tired of carrying it. Her hand rested against the balcony railing. For years I carried grief. Her voice grew quieter. Then I carried anger. The city lights flickered below. And now. She exhaled slowly. I think I'm ready to put it down. The words felt lighter than she expected. As though speaking them removed a burden she hadn't realized she was still carrying. Cale looked at her for a long moment. Then asked softly. Does that mean you've forgiven them? Elena's answer came immediately. No. The word was firm. Certain. I haven't. The wind swept between them. What they did was wrong. Her voice remained steady. My children deserved better. A shadow crossed her eyes. And I deserved better. Cale nodded. Because she was right. She absolutely was. Elena looked up at the stars. I don't forgive them. A pause. But I don't want my life to belong to them anymore. Silence followed. Beautiful silence. The kind that comes when a truth finally finds its place. After a while, Cale smiled. A small smile. One filled with quiet pride. Not because Elena had chosen forgiveness. She hadn't. Not because she had forgotten the past. She never would. But because she had finally chosen herself. Her future. Her peace. Her life. And for the first time in many years, Elena felt free. Not from the memories. Not from the scars. But from the hatred. The hatred no longer owned her. And that was a victory greater than revenge. For a very long time, Elena believed a part of her had died. Not her body. Not her spirit. Her heart. The part of her that trusted. The part of her that loved. The part that dreamed of forever. When Rowan had condemned her without listening. When her children had been taken from her. When she had been abandoned to grief and exile. Something inside her shattered. And after her memories returned, she had made herself a promise. A simple promise. A painful promise. She would never love again. Because love hurt. Love betrayed. Love left scars. So she built walls. Walls around her heart. Walls around her feelings. Walls around the pain. And for years, those walls remained standing. Until she began noticing something. Or rather, someone. Cale. The realization did not arrive all at once. It arrived in small moments. Quiet moments. Moments she had never paid attention to before. One morning, she was walking through the marketplace when an elderly merchant approached her. The man bowed respectfully. My lady. Elena smiled. Good morning. The merchant hesitated. Then chuckled softly. You know, Alpha Cale was here before sunrise. Elena blinked. Why? The merchant laughed. Because he heard the roof of my shop was damaged during the storm. Confusion crossed her face. He repaired it himself. Elena stared. The merchant nodded. He refused to let anyone thank him. Then the old man smiled. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? Before Elena could answer, the merchant walked away. Leaving her strangely thoughtful. Later that afternoon, she witnessed another moment. A young child tripped while running through the square. The little boy hit the ground hard. Immediately bursting into tears. Before anyone else could react, Cale was already kneeling beside him. Checking his injuries. Helping him stand. patiently listening to a story that seemed to make very little sense. Yet Kale listened as though it were the most important story in the world. Eventually the child stopped crying. Then smiled. Then ran away. Kale simply continued on his way. As though nothing unusual had happened. As though kindness was effortless. As though caring for people was natural. And perhaps for him, it was. The days passed. Then the weeks. And Elena found herself noticing more. Much more. She noticed how servants relaxed when Kale entered a room. Because they trusted him. She noticed how warriors respected him. Not out of fear. But loyalty. She noticed how children adored him. How elders valued him. How strangers immediately felt safe around him. And slowly, a question began forming inside her mind. How had she never noticed before? One evening, Elena sat alone in the gardens. The same gardens where Kale had once confessed his love. The same gardens where her memories had returned. The same gardens where her world had changed forever. The flowers swayed gently in the evening breeze. Lost in thought, she didn't hear the approaching footsteps. Not until Kale sat beside her. For a while, neither spoke. The silence felt comfortable. Familiar. Then Kale glanced at her. "You've been thinking." Elena smiled faintly. "Is it that obvious?" "Very." She laughed softly. A real laugh. Not forced. Not painful. Just genuine. Kale smiled at the sound. As he always did. And suddenly, Elena noticed. Noticed the way his eyes softened whenever he looked at her. Noticed the warmth in his voice. Noticed the patience he always showed her. Not because he expected anything. Not because he wanted anything. Simply because he cared. The realization hit her unexpectedly. For years, Kale had been there. When she woke with no memories, Kale was there. When she struggled to find her place, Kale was there. When her memories returned and she fell apart, Kale was there. When she demanded strength, Kale was there. When she succeeded, Kale was there. Always there. A constant presence. A steady hand. A safe place. The thought made her chest tighten. Not painfully. Warmly. Almost frighteningly warm. Because she suddenly understood something. Kale had loved every version of her. Liana. Elena. The broken woman. The healing woman. The angry woman. The powerful woman. All of them. Without conditions. Without demands. Without expectations. The realization left her speechless. Kale tilted his head. "What is it?" Elena looked at him. Really looked at him. The silver hair. The golden eyes. The quiet strength. The kindness he never advertised. The love he never forced upon her. And for the first time, she wondered what would have happened if she had met him first. The thought startled her. So much that she immediately looked away. Kale noticed. Concern appeared on his face. "Elena?" His voice was gentle. "Are you all right?" The concern in his voice nearly broke her heart. Because even now, even after years, his first instinct was to worry about her. Not himself. Her. Elena swallowed hard. Then nodded. "I'm fine." Kale studied her for a moment. Then accepted the answer. As he always did. Never pushing. Never forcing. Always respecting her boundaries. The evening sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, painting the sky gold and crimson. And as Elena watched the sunset beside him, a truth settled quietly into her heart. The fear was still there. The scars were still there. The memories were still there. But something else was there too. Something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. Not for revenge. Not for power. Not for justice. For love. For the possibility that her story had not ended with heartbreak. For the possibility that her heart could belong to someone again. She wasn't ready to say the words. Not yet. She wasn't ready to confess what she was feeling. Not yet. But for the first time since her world had fallen apart, she stopped running from the feeling. And beside her, completely unaware of the battle he had just won, Cale smiled at something in the distance. The sight made Elena smile too. A small smile. A secret smile. One that belonged only to her. And for the first time in many years, the walls around her heart cracked. Just a little. Enough for the light to enter. After years of protecting her heart, Elena found herself thinking about Cale. Far more often than she intended. It happened at the most unexpected moments. While reviewing trade agreements. While tending the healing gardens. While speaking with merchants. While training with warriors. Her thoughts would suddenly drift toward him. And every time they did, a strange warmth followed. At first, she ignored it. Then she tried to explain it away. Then she tried to fight it. None of it worked. Because the truth was becoming impossible to deny. Something inside her was changing. And perhaps it had been changing for a very long time. One afternoon, Elena was visiting a newly built healing center in a distant village. The building stood proudly at the center of the settlement. Children played nearby. Patients filled the waiting area. The villagers couldn't stop thanking her. As she prepared to leave, an elderly woman approached. The woman smiled warmly. "My lady." Elena smiled back. "I hope the center is helping." The elderly woman laughed. "Helping?" She pointed toward the building. "You've changed our lives." Elena lowered her gaze. Praise still made her uncomfortable. The old woman seemed amused by that. Then her eyes shifted toward the group waiting nearby. Toward Cale. The old woman smiled knowingly. "You know." Elena immediately became suspicious. That expression rarely led anywhere safe. "What?" The old woman chuckled. "That man loves you." Elena nearly choked. The old woman laughed. "Oh, don't look so surprised." Elena looked away. A reaction that only made the woman laugh harder. "It's obvious." The elderly woman lowered her voice. "Do you know how many times he's visited this village?" Elena frowned. "No." 12. Her eyebrows lifted. 12? The woman nodded. 12 times. Elena looked toward Cale. The Alpha was speaking with several villagers. Listening carefully. As he always did. The elderly woman smiled. The funny thing is, Elena already knew she wasn't going to like the next sentence. He never came before you started visiting. The old woman patted Elena's hand. Then walked away. Leaving Elena standing there. Thinking. Again. That evening, the journey home took longer than expected. A storm rolled across the mountains. Heavy rain covered the roads. The escort was forced to stop at a small hunting lodge until the weather passed. The servants prepared food. The guards settled in for the night. And eventually, Elena found herself sitting near a fireplace. Alone. Well, not entirely alone. Cale sat nearby. The firelight danced across his silver hair. For a while, neither spoke. The crackling fire filled the silence. Then Elena surprised herself. "Can I ask you something?" Cale looked up. "Of course." Elena stared into the flames, gathering courage. Because suddenly she felt nervous. Ridiculously nervous. When you confessed to me in the garden. Kale immediately became very still. The air itself seemed to pause. Elena continued. After I ran away. Her voice softened. Why didn't you try again? Kale remained silent for several seconds. Long enough for Elena to wonder if she had made a mistake. Finally, he spoke. Because you were hurting. The answer came without hesitation. Without calculation. Without resentment. Simply truth. Elena looked at him. Kale's golden eyes reflected the firelight. You had just remembered the worst moments of your life. His voice remained calm. You were grieving. A pause. You needed healing. Another pause. You didn't need pressure. Something tightened painfully inside Elena's chest. Because the answer was exactly what she should have expected. Kale smiled faintly. I loved you. His voice was quiet. I still do. Elena's heart skipped. But loving someone doesn't mean demanding something from them. The fire crackled softly. If you never loved me back. His gaze held hers. I would still want you to be happy. The words hit harder than any weapon. Because he meant them. Every single one. Elena could hear it. Feel it. There was no manipulation. No guilt. No expectation. Just love. Pure. Steady. Patient. The kind of love that asks for nothing. For a moment, neither spoke. The world felt strangely quiet. Then Elena whispered. You waited. Kale smiled. A small smile. One filled with years of affection. I did. The answer was simple. But it carried the weight of everything. The years. The patience. The loyalty. The hope. Elena felt her eyes sting. Not from sadness. From something else. Something far more dangerous. Because for the first time, she wasn't afraid of loving him. She was afraid of how much she already might. The realization sent her heart racing. Quickly, she looked away. Trying to regain control of herself. Trying to regain control of feelings she no longer understood. Beside her, Kale remained calm. As he always was. Giving her space. Giving her time. Never asking for more than she was ready to give. And for the first time, Elena realized something. The safest place she had ever known. Wasn't a palace. Wasn't a kingdom. Wasn't a home. It was beside him. The thought lingered. Warm. Terrifying. Beautiful. And as the storm continued outside, something even more powerful was beginning inside her heart. Something she could no longer ignore. Something that looked very much like love. After the night at the hunting lodge, nothing changed. And yet, everything changed. Kale remained the same. He did not become bolder. He did not demand answers. He did not suddenly start speaking of love again. He simply continued being Kale. Steady. Patient. Kind. The man he had always been. The difference was Elena. Because now, she noticed everything. The way he always made sure she ate when she became too focused on work. The way he stood slightly closer whenever a crowd became overwhelming. The way he remembered small things she had forgotten mentioning. The way his eyes searched for her whenever he entered a room. Things she had overlooked for years. Things that now seemed impossible to miss. One afternoon, Elena was working in the healing gardens. The same gardens where her life had begun again. She was carefully examining a rare medicinal plant when one of the younger healers approached. The young woman looked nervous. very nervous. Elena immediately set down her tools. What happened? The healer hesitated. Then blurted out. I need advice. Elena blinked. Advice? The young woman nodded. Her face turned bright red. Elena suddenly understood. This wasn't about healing. It was about a man. The realization nearly made her smile. The young healer twisted her hands together. I think someone likes me. Elena raised an eyebrow. And? I don't know what to do. That answer made Elena laugh softly. Not a loud laugh. Just a gentle one. The healer looked horrified. Please don't laugh. I'm not. You are. I'm smiling. That's worse. The young woman looked completely serious. Elena couldn't help it. She smiled again. Eventually, she asked. Do you like him? The healer's face became even redder. Maybe. Elena immediately recognized the answer. Because maybe rarely meant maybe. The healer stared at the ground. What if I get hurt? The question was so honest. So vulnerable. That Elena's smile slowly faded. Because suddenly, the conversation no longer felt like it was about the healer. The young woman continued quietly. What if I trust him and everything goes wrong? Elena's chest tightened. The question echoed somewhere deep inside her. The healer waited. Expecting wisdom. Expecting guidance. For a moment, Elena wasn't sure she had any. Then she thought about Kale. The years. The patience. The loyalty. The way he had stood beside her through every storm. And slowly, an answer formed. Then you take the risk. The healer looked up. Surprised. Elena's voice softened. Not because you're guaranteed happiness. The wind moved through the flowers around them. Because some people are worth trusting. The young woman smiled. A hopeful smile. And for some reason, Elena's own words lingered in her mind long after the conversation ended. Some people are worth trusting. That evening, she found herself searching for Kale. The realization annoyed her immediately. She was not searching for him. She simply wanted to talk. That was different. Entirely different. At least that was what she told herself. Eventually she found him near the training grounds. Several children had surrounded him. Demanding stories. Demanding demonstrations. Demanding attention. Kale handled the situation with remarkable patience. As always. Elena watched from a distance. One little girl climbed directly into his lap. Another grabbed his arm. A third demanded he explain something involving wolves. Kale somehow managed all three conversations at once. The sight made Elena smile. Without realizing it, the little girl suddenly pointed. Lady Elena. Immediately every child turned. Kale looked up too. Their eyes met. And suddenly Elena forgot why she had come. An awkward silence followed. One of the children narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Then another. Then all of them. Children noticed everything. It was deeply unfortunate. The little girl looked between Elena and Kale. Then smiled. A dangerous smile. The kind children wear before causing trouble. Alpha Kale likes Lady Elena. Silence. Complete silence. Elena froze. Several children nodded enthusiastically. Everyone knows. Everyone. Literally everyone. One boy pointed dramatically. Even the cooks know. Kale covered his face. The children erupted into laughter. Elena felt heat rush into her cheeks. A sensation she had not experienced in years. The little girl tilted her head. Do you like him too? The question hung in the air. The children leaned forward immediately. Waiting. Watching. Completely invested. Elena froze. Her heart suddenly beating much faster than it should. Slowly, she turned toward Kale. Their eyes met. And unlike the children, Kale wasn't laughing. He wasn't teasing. He wasn't embarrassed. His golden eyes remained fixed on hers. Calm. Steady. Patient. The same way they had always been. But beneath that calmness was something else. Hope. Not pressure. Not expectation. Just a quiet hope. For years, he had given her space. For years, he had waited. And now, for the first time, he simply wanted to hear her answer. Whatever that answer might be. The world seemed unusually quiet. The children held their breath. Kale never looked away. Neither did Elena. Then a small smile appeared on her lips. Soft. Warm. Honest. And very gently, she said, "I'm still figuring that out." After the incident with the children, something changed. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But enough. Enough for Elena to notice. Enough for Kale to notice. The walls around her heart were no longer as high as they once were. And for the first time in years, she wasn't trying to rebuild them. Kale saw it. Of course he did. He noticed the way she smiled more when they spoke. The way she lingered after conversations instead of leaving immediately. The way her eyes searched for him in crowded rooms. Small things. Tiny things. But after years of loving her, Kale noticed every one of them. Still, he remained patient. Because patience had become second nature to him. Until one evening. An evening that changed everything. The sun was beginning to disappear behind the mountains. The sky glowed gold and orange. Elena stood alone in the healing gardens. Her favorite place. The place where she thought. The place where she healed. The place where she remembered who she was. Footsteps approached. She smiled before turning around. Already knowing who it was. Kale. His silver hair reflected the fading sunlight. His golden eyes settled on her immediately. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence felt familiar. Comfortable. Then Kale smiled. "You always come here when you're thinking." Elena laughed softly. "And you always find me." "That's because I know where to look." The answer was simple. Yet something about the way he said it made her heart skip. Kale stepped closer. Not enough to crowd her. Just enough to be near. The evening breeze moved through the flowers. Neither looked away. Then Kale spoke. His voice quieter than usual. "Do you remember what I told you here years ago?" Elena's breath caught. Because she knew exactly what he meant. The first confession. The confession that had brought back her memories. The confession that had changed everything. She nodded. "I remember." Kale smiled softly. "I never took it back." The words settled gently between them. Elena felt her heart tighten. Not painfully. Warmly. Kale continued. "I've loved you through every version of yourself." His gaze never left hers. The woman with no memories. The healer. The warrior. The leader. His voice remained calm. Certain. "I loved all of them." Elena couldn't speak. Couldn't look away. Couldn't breathe properly. Because every word felt real. Every word felt earned. Kale took another step forward. For years he had held back. For years he had waited. But now, he wanted her to know. To truly know. "You once told me you never wanted to love again." Elena lowered her eyes. She remembered. She remembered every word. Cale's voice softened. I understood. And I respected it. A pause. But Elena. Slowly, she looked up. His golden eyes held hers. Steady. Warm. Full of something she had not seen from anyone in a very long time. Devotion. I would rather spend my entire life loving you from a distance. His voice grew even quieter. Then spend a single day pretending I don't. The word struck directly at her heart. For several seconds, neither moved. Neither spoke. The world seemed to disappear. Leaving only the two of them. The flowers. The evening sky. And years of unspoken feelings. Then Cale smiled. A small smile. One filled with hope. I love you, Elena. No hesitation. No uncertainty. No fear. Just truth. Simple. Powerful. Real. I loved you yesterday. The breeze moved through the garden. I love you today. His eyes softened. And I'll love you tomorrow. A tear slipped down Elena's cheek. Not from sadness. Not from grief. From being loved so completely. So patiently. So faithfully. Cale immediately reached up and wiped the tear away. His touch was gentle. Careful. As though she were precious. The gesture nearly shattered what remained of her defenses. Because no one had ever loved her like this. Not even before. Especially not before. For years she had been afraid. Afraid to trust. Afraid to hope. Afraid to love. But standing here now. Looking into Cale's eyes. She realized something. The safest place she had ever known. Was him. The realization settled deep within her. Calm. Certain. True. A smile slowly appeared on her lips. Then another tear followed. This time accompanied by a soft laugh. Not a laugh of amusement. A laugh of relief. As though she had finally stopped fighting herself. Cale watched her carefully. Waiting. Not demanding. Not pushing. Simply waiting. The way he always had. Finally, Elena reached for his hand. Their fingers intertwined. Her voice trembled. Not from fear. From emotion. I think. She stopped. Took a breath. Then smiled through her tears. No. Cale's heart pounded. Elena squeezed his hand. And for the first time, she allowed herself to say what had been growing inside her heart for years. I know. His breath caught. 1,000 emotions crossed his face. Hope. Joy. Disbelief. Wonder. And then Elena whispered the words he had waited years to hear. I love you too. Silence. Beautiful silence. The world itself seemed to pause. As though honoring the moment. For years Cale had waited. For years Elena had healed. And finally. Their paths met in the same place. At the same time. Under the same sky. Cale smiled. The brightest smile she had ever seen from him. And Elena realized she wanted to spend the rest of her life seeing it. Together, they stood among the flowers. Hands intertwined. Hearts open. No longer running. No longer afraid. No longer alone. For years. They had danced around the same truth. A truth everyone could see. Everyone except them. Or perhaps. A truth they both saw but were afraid to touch. Because some things are so precious. You fear breaking them. Tonight was different. There were no walls left between them. No fear. No uncertainty. No unanswered questions. Only two hearts that had finally found their way to each other. The rain continued falling outside. Soft. Steady. Peaceful. Inside, warm firelight filled the room. Elena stood beside the window, watching droplets slide down the glass. Lost in thought. A familiar presence entered behind her. She smiled before turning. Cale. He had that effect on her now. A single glance. A single smile. And suddenly the world felt lighter. For a moment, neither spoke. They simply looked at one another. As though they were still amazed this was real. As though after years of waiting, they still couldn't quite believe they were finally here. Together. Cale crossed the room slowly. His eyes never leaving hers. Not because he was studying her. Because he loved looking at her. Every expression. Every smile. Every little detail. Elena felt warmth spread through her chest. The kind of warmth that only appeared when he was near. The kind she had spent years trying not to feel. Now she welcomed it. Cale stopped in front of her. Close enough that she could hear his breathing. Close enough that she could see the affection in his eyes. You've been staring at the rain for 10 minutes. His voice was soft. Teasing. Elena smiled. And you've been staring at me. A grin appeared on his face. I always stare at you. The answer made her laugh. A real laugh. The kind he loved most. The sound filled the room. And Cale found himself smiling simply because she was happy. He had spent years wanting that smile. Years protecting it. Years hoping to see it more often. Now it belonged to him. Or perhaps they belonged to each other. The thought settled warmly inside his chest. Elena looked up at him. Their eyes met. The laughter faded. The smiles softened. The room suddenly felt much quieter. Much smaller. As though the rest of the world had disappeared. Cale reached for her hand. His fingers intertwined with hers naturally. Comfortably. Like they had done it 1,000 times. Because they had. Yet somehow. Tonight felt different. Everything felt different. Elena stepped closer. The movement was small. But it stole Cale's breath anyway. Because she was choosing him. Again. And again. And again. Every day. Every moment. Every step. She lifted her hand to his face. Her fingers brushing his cheek. The touch was gentle. Tender. Affectionate. Cale closed his eyes briefly. Leaning into it. A simple gesture. Yet it nearly broke Elena's heart. Because for all his strength. For all his power. For all the respect he commanded. He had always been soft with her. Always. I love you. The words escaped her before she could stop them. Cale opened his eyes. A smile immediately appeared. One of those rare smiles that transformed his entire face. The kind she never grew tired of seeing. I love you too. His voice carried years of truth. Years of devotion. Years of patience. The words wrapped around her heart. Warm. Safe. Certain. Elena felt tears gathering unexpectedly. Not from sadness. From happiness. The realization surprised her. There was a time she thought happiness would never belong to her again. A time she believed she had lost it forever. Yet here she was. Standing in front of a man who loved her completely. A man who knew her scars. Her fears. Her failures. Her grief. And loved her anyway. Perhaps even because of them. Cale brushed away a tear before it could fall. His expression softened. You deserve every good thing life has to offer. Elena's breath caught. The words settled somewhere deep inside her. Somewhere wounded. Somewhere still healing. And somehow, they healed it a little more. Slowly, she rested her forehead against his. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. The fire crackled softly behind them. The rain continued outside. The world moved on. But for this moment, nothing existed except them. Two people who had survived heartbreak. Two people who had found hope again. Two people who had finally stopped waiting. And as Kale wrapped his arms around her and Elena rested peacefully against him, she realized something. Love had never truly left her. It had simply been waiting. Waiting for the right person. The right time. The right heart. And now, it was home. For more than 3 years, Alpha Rowan's kingdom had suffered. The suffering never stopped. First came the drought. Then came disease. Then came failed harvests. The rivers grew smaller. The fields stopped producing. Animals died without explanation. Children became sick. Families lost hope. No matter what the healers tried, nothing worked. It was as though an invisible curse had settled over the kingdom. And every year, it became worse. Inside the royal palace, frustration had become a daily companion. The council of elders gathered constantly. Searching. Arguing. Praying. Looking for answers. But answers never came. Even the royal family suffered. Lady Serena, Rowan's second Luna, sat quietly in her chamber. Her expression filled with sadness. Years had passed since her marriage to Rowan. Yet she remained childless. Every healer had examined her. Every blessing had been attempted. Every ritual had failed. Nothing changed. No child came. No heir was born. The royal bloodline remained unfinished. And with every passing year, the pressure grew heavier. One evening, Rowan sat in the council chamber surrounded by elders. The atmosphere was bleak. Exhaustion lined every face. Finally, one of the oldest elders spoke. "We have tried everything. Nobody disagreed. We need another answer." Silence followed. Then another elder slowly stood. "There is one thing we have not consulted." Several faces turned toward him. The prophecy book. The room became quiet. Very quiet. The prophecy book was ancient. Older than the kingdom itself. Most people considered it sacred. Some considered it dangerous. But desperate people often turned toward desperate solutions. Within the hour, the massive book was brought from the royal archives. Dust covered its surface. The leather binding showed centuries of age. An elderly scholar carefully opened it. Page after page passed beneath his fingers. Then suddenly, he froze. The room immediately noticed. "What is it?" The scholar swallowed. His hands trembled. "I found something." Everyone leaned forward. The old man began reading. "When darkness settles upon the kingdom. When the land weakens. When the bloodline suffers. Salvation shall come through the mother of twins." The room fell silent. The scholar continued. "She shall carry life for 10 moons. Several elders stiffened. 10 moons. 10 months. Among wolves, pregnancies normally lasted 9 months. 10 months was extraordinarily rare. The scholar continued. "She shall possess the gift of healing. She shall possess a sacred bond. And only her hands shall break the curse." Silence. Complete silence. One elder slowly sat down. Another stared at the floor. Because suddenly, everyone remembered. Elena. The woman who had carried twins. The woman whose pregnancy lasted 10 months. The woman they had condemned. The woman they believed was dead. The realization struck like lightning. Nobody wanted to speak. Nobody wanted to say her name. Finally, Rowan did. Elena. The word felt heavy. Painful. The room lowered its gaze. Because they all knew the truth. If the prophecy referred to Elena, then they had destroyed their own salvation. A terrible silence followed. Then the scholar spoke again. There may be another possibility. Immediately, every head turned. The scholar unfolded several reports. I have heard stories. What stories? An elder asked. Stories about a healer. The room became attentive. The scholar nodded. A healer known across kingdoms. A healer whose abilities are said to be extraordinary. He placed several reports on the table. She has cured illnesses other healers could not. She has restored entire regions. People travel from distant lands just to seek her help. Hope slowly returned to the room. What is her name? The scholar answered. Lena. The name meant nothing to Rowan. Nothing at all. Yet desperation left few options. The scholar continued. She is said to be one of the most influential women in the world. A healer. A merchant. A leader. And many claim her healing abilities are supernatural. The elders exchanged hopeful glances. Perhaps this was the answer. Perhaps fate had given them another chance. Finally Rowan stood. We're going. No one argued. They could not afford to. The kingdom needed saving. Serena needed healing. The curse needed breaking. And so, several days later, the royal delegation departed. Rowan. Serena. The elders. Guards. Servants. And enough gifts to impress even the wealthiest ruler. The journey lasted many days. As they traveled, they heard countless stories about Lady Lena. Every village spoke her name. Every merchant praised her. Every healer respected her. The stories seemed endless. By the time they arrived at her territory, even Rowan found himself curious. Then they crossed the border. And shock greeted them. The roads were perfect. The farms flourished. The markets overflowed with goods. The people looked healthy. Happy. Prosperous. The contrast to Rowan's kingdom was impossible to ignore. This wasn't merely a territory. It was a thriving empire. Built by one woman. Eventually they arrived at a magnificent estate. Servants greeted them politely. After introductions, Rowan spoke. We wish to meet Lady Lena. The servant bowed respectfully. I am afraid that will not be possible. The elders frowned. Why? The servant smiled. Because Lady Lena is preparing for her wedding. Silence. Wedding? Yes. The servant's smile widened. In 3 days. Another elder stepped forward. We have traveled very far. The servant nodded. We understand. Then surely we can meet her briefly. The servant shook his head. Our lady has given strict instructions. What instructions? The servant answered proudly. No visitors until after the wedding. The delegation exchanged frustrated looks. They had come all this way. Yet they could not leave. Not now. Not when their kingdom's future depended on it. Reluctantly, they agreed to wait. 3 days later, the wedding arrived. Nobles. Merchants. Kings. Queens. Leaders from countless territories gathered. The celebration was magnificent. More extravagant than anything Rowan had seen in years. Music filled the air. Flowers decorated every path. Guests filled every seat. Then the ceremony began. The groom entered first. Alpha Kale. Powerful. Respected. Confident. The crowd applauded. Then came the bride. The moment she appeared, the entire delegation froze. One elder gasped. Another nearly fell from his chair. Serena's eyes widened. Rowan stopped breathing. Because walking toward the altar, alive, beautiful, powerful, was Elena. Not dead. Not broken. Not forgotten. Alive. And marrying another man. The woman they had condemned. The woman they had lost. The woman destiny had chosen. And standing there before everyone. She never once looked their way. The door clicked shut. Silence. For the first time all day, the noise of the kingdom was gone. No cheers. No eyes. No crown waiting for them. Just Elena. Just Kale. And the air between them felt different. Thick. Electric. Like a storm that had been building for years and finally broke. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Every glance said what letters and vows never could. Kale's eyes moved over her face like he was memorizing her all over again. Not with hunger. With awe. Like he still couldn't believe she was standing here, wearing his name. After all this time, he said, voice low, rough at the edges. You're mine. The words weren't a claim. They were a prayer. Elena's breath caught. She stepped closer until she could feel the heat of him, until his heartbeat matched hers. Then stop looking at me like I'm a dream, she whispered. And touch me like I'm real. Kale didn't hesitate. His hand came up to her cheek, thumb tracing her jaw like she might shatter. Then he kissed her. Slow at first. Deep. Devoted. Like he was making up for every year he'd held back. His other arm pulled her flush against him and she felt the years of restraint crack in his chest. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. His forehead dropped to hers. His hand stayed on her waist, holding her like he'd never let go. I've waited my whole life for this, he murmured against her lips. Not just the wedding. Not just the title. You. All of you. Elena smiled against his mouth. Then take it, she breathed. I'm not afraid anymore. The world narrowed to just them. The weight of the crown, the war, the kingdom, all of it faded. There was only the promise in his touch, the honesty in his eyes, and the future they'd fought for. Husband. Wife. At last. The next morning arrived with tension. A tension so thick it could almost be touched. Inside the grand meeting hall, Rowan, Serena, and the elders sat waiting. No one spoke much. No one knew what to expect. The memories of yesterday's wedding still lingered. The shock. The shame. The disbelief. Because Elena was alive. Not only alive. She had become one of the most powerful women in the world. And they had been the ones who cast her away. Minutes passed. Then the large doors opened. Every head turned. The moment Elena entered the hall, the atmosphere changed. She walked with confidence. With grace. With authority. Beside her walked Alpha Kale. Her husband. Her partner. Her protector. The servants immediately bowed. The guards bowed. The visiting nobles bowed. Even some of Rowan's delegation lowered their heads. Not out of fear. Out of respect. The respect Elena had earned through years of hard work and sacrifice. Elena took her seat. Kale sat beside her. Then she spoke calmly. You may rise. Everyone slowly stood. There is no need to bow. Her voice was composed. Professional. Distant. Then her eyes moved across the room. Past the elders. Past Serena. Past the guards. Until they settled on Rowan. Instantly her expression changed. The warmth vanished. The calm disappeared. Old wounds opened. Pain she thought she had buried suddenly returned. The room became silent. Dead silent. Elena stood. What are you doing here? Nobody answered. Her eyes moved toward the elders. The same elders who had condemned her. The same elders who had never allowed her to defend herself. The same elders who had destroyed her life. Anger rose inside her. Years of pain. Years of silence. Years of suffering. What do you want from me? Still nobody spoke. Then Elena's voice hardened. I don't want to see any of you. The word struck the room like thunder. You judged me. Her eyes filled with pain. You punished me. Her gaze settled on Rowan. You never even asked me for the truth. Silence. No one could deny it. No one dared. Elena shook her head. I have nothing to say to any of you. Then she turned and walked away, leaving everyone speechless. The doors closed behind her, and the meeting hall fell into complete silence. Several moments passed. Then all eyes turned toward Kale. The elders stood immediately. Alpha Kale, please. We need your help. The kingdom is dying. We have nowhere else to go. Kale listened quietly. Then he slowly stood. His face remained calm. But his loyalty was clear. You are asking a great deal. No one argued. Because they knew he was right. Still. Kale eventually left the hall. A few minutes later, he entered Elena's private chamber. She stood near the window. Arms folded. Still angry. Still hurt. Kale approached gently. Not as an alpha. Not as a leader. As her husband. As the man who loved her. They hurt you. Elena looked away. Yes. They were wrong. Yes. Kale nodded. I know. Silence followed. Then he moved closer, taking her hands into his. But if helping them saves innocent people. His voice softened. Then perhaps you should at least listen. Elena stared at him. For several seconds. Then she sighed. Because she trusted him. Because she loved him. Because he had never once asked her for something selfish. Finally she nodded. Fine. Together they returned to the meeting hall. Everyone immediately stood. This time Elena remained seated. Her expression unreadable. What do you want? One elder swallowed nervously. There is a calamity in the kingdom. Another spoke. The land is dying. A third added. There is a curse. And Serena cannot conceive. Elena listened quietly. Then her eyes closed. For several moments she said nothing. The room waited. Finally she opened her eyes. The problem is not outside. Confusion crossed several faces. Elena continued. The problem is within. Silence. Then suddenly. A pulse of energy spread through the room. A powerful wave of healing light erupted from Elena. Everyone gasped. The light touched Serena. Immediately Serena screamed. Her entire body trembled. She collapsed to her knees. No. Tears poured down her face. No. The room froze. What is happening? An elder shouted. Serena sobbed violently. Then the truth finally came out. I didn't want this. The room became still. I didn't want any of this. Her voice cracked. It was my father. Everyone turned toward one of the elders. The elder's face turned pale. Serena pointed at him. He planned everything. Shock filled the room. He hated Elena. He wanted power. He wanted influence. He said if Elena disappeared, our family would rise. The elder stumbled backward. Serena. No. She was crying uncontrollably now. You lied. You manipulated everyone. You used me. Gasps spread through the hall. Years of secrets were finally being exposed. Elena watched quietly. No satisfaction. No joy. Only sadness. Because the truth had arrived far too late. Eventually she stood. Looking at everyone. I will give you what you came for. Hope immediately appeared on several faces. But after today. Her gaze swept across the room. I do not wish to see any of you again. Nobody argued. Nobody had the right. Then she turned. Walking toward the doors. Before leaving she spoke to her servants. See that our guests are cared for. The servants bowed. Yes, my lady. And Elena left. The room remained silent. Moments later, Rowan stood. Then turned toward Cale. Please. His voice broke. Just one conversation. Cale studied him. Then eventually nodded. Later that evening, Cale approached Elena once more. He wishes to speak with you. Elena immediately shook her head. No. Cale stepped closer. His voice gentle. One final conversation. She looked at him. Then sighed. Only because it was him. Only because she trusted him. Finally she agreed. That evening, Rowan stood waiting alone. Cale remained nearby. Far enough to give privacy. Close enough to remain present. Elena approached. Neither spoke immediately. Then Rowan's composure shattered. Tears filled his eyes. Years of guilt finally breaking free. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. Elena remained silent. Rowan continued. For everything. For not listening. For judging you. For believing lies. For taking our sons. The words nearly destroyed him. Tears streamed down his face. I failed you. His shoulders shook. I failed our family. Elena looked away. Because hearing it still hurt. Even now. After everything. Rowan took a shaky breath. Then whispered. One last request. Elena frowned. What? His voice broke completely. A hug. Silence. Long silence. Every instinct told her to refuse. Every wound told her to walk away. But then she glanced toward Cale. Her husband simply looked at her. Calm. Supportive. Trusting her choice. After several moments. Elena stepped forward. And allowed Rowan to embrace her. The moment his arms wrapped around her, he broke. Completely. Years of guilt. Years of grief. Years of regret. All exploded at once. He cried openly. Like a broken man. Like a father mourning his children. Like a husband mourning the life he destroyed. I'm sorry. Again. And again. And again. Elena said nothing. When the embrace ended, she stepped away. And with that, the chapter of their lives finally closed. That night, inside her chamber, Elena cried. Not because she still loved Rowan. She didn't. Her heart belonged to Cale. Completely. But once upon a time, she had loved Rowan deeply. And grief does not disappear simply because love ends. Cale never left her side. Not for a moment. He held her close. Allowed her tears. Allowed her pain. Allowed years of buried emotions to finally leave. And throughout the night, he simply loved her. Patiently. Gently. Quietly. The way he always had. The next morning, Elena provided the remedies, instructions, and healing gifts needed to help Rowan's kingdom recover. Then the delegation departed. And as they left, Elena never looked back. Because her future was no longer behind her. It was beside her. And his name was Kale. The next morning arrived with tension. A tension so thick it could almost be touched. Inside the grand meeting hall, Rowan, Serena, and the elders sat waiting. No one spoke much. No one knew what to expect. The memories of yesterday's wedding still lingered. The shock. The shame. The disbelief. Because Elena was alive. Not only alive. She had become one of the most powerful women in the world. And they had been the ones who cast her away. Minutes passed. Then the large doors opened. Every head turned. The moment Elena entered the hall, the atmosphere changed. She walked with confidence. With grace. With authority. Beside her walked Alpha Kale. Her husband. Her partner. Her protector. The servants immediately bowed. The guards bowed. The visiting nobles bowed. Even some of Rowan's delegation lowered their heads. Not out of fear. Out of respect. The respect Elena had earned through years of hard work and sacrifice. Elena took her seat. Kale sat beside her. Then she spoke calmly. You may rise. Everyone slowly stood. There is no need to bow. Her voice was composed. Professional. Distant. Then her eyes moved across the room. Past the elders. Past Serena. Past the guards. Until they settled on Rowan. Instantly her expression changed. The warmth vanished. The calm disappeared. Old wounds opened. Pain she thought she had buried suddenly returned. The room became silent. Dead silent. Elena stood. What are you doing here? Nobody answered. Her eyes moved toward the elders. The same elders who had condemned her. The same elders who had never allowed her to defend herself. The same elders who had destroyed her life. Anger rose inside her. Years of pain. Years of silence. Years of suffering. What do you want from me? Still nobody spoke. Then Elena's voice hardened. I don't want to see any of you. The word struck the room like thunder. You judged me. Her eyes filled with pain. You punished me. Her gaze settled on Rowan. You never even asked me for the truth. Silence. No one could deny it. No one dared. Elena shook her head. I have nothing to say to any of you. Then she turned and walked away. Leaving everyone speechless. The doors closed behind her. And the meeting hall fell into complete silence. Several moments passed. Then all eyes turned toward Kale. The elders stood immediately. Alpha Kale, please. We need your help. The kingdom is dying. We have nowhere else to go. Kale listened quietly. Then he slowly stood. His face remained calm. But his loyalty was clear. You are asking a great deal. No one argued. Because they knew he was right. Still. Kale eventually left the hall. A few minutes later, he entered Elena's private chamber. She stood near the window. Arms folded. Still angry. Still hurt. Kale approached gently. Not as an alpha. Not as a leader. As her husband. As the man who loved her. They hurt you. Elena looked away. Yes. They were wrong. Yes. Cale nodded. I know. Silence followed. Then he moved closer, taking her hands into his. But if helping them saves innocent people. His voice softened. Then perhaps you should at least listen. Elena stared at him. For several seconds. Then she sighed. Because she trusted him. Because she loved him. Because he had never once asked her for something selfish. Finally she nodded. Fine. Together they returned to the meeting hall. Everyone immediately stood. This time Elena remained seated. Her expression unreadable. What do you want? One elder swallowed nervously. There is a calamity in the kingdom. Another spoke. The land is dying. A third added. There is a curse. And Serena cannot conceive. Elena listened quietly. Then her eyes closed. For several moments she said nothing. The room waited. Finally she opened her eyes. The problem is not outside. Confusion crossed several faces. Elena continued. The problem is within. Silence. Then suddenly, a pulse of energy spread through the room. A powerful wave of healing light erupted from Elena. Everyone gasped. The light touched Serena. Immediately Serena screamed. Her entire body trembled. She collapsed to her knees. No. Tears poured down her face. No. The room froze. What is happening? An elder shouted. Serena sobbed violently. Then the truth finally came out. I didn't want this. The room became still. I didn't want any of this. Her voice cracked. It was my father. Everyone turned toward one of the elders. The elder's face turned pale. Serena pointed at him. He planned everything. Shock filled the room. He hated Elena. He wanted power. He wanted influence. He said if Elena disappeared, our family would rise. The elder stumbled backward. Serena. No. She was crying uncontrollably now. You lied. You manipulated everyone. You used me. Gasps spread through the hall. Years of secrets were finally being exposed. Elena watched quietly. No satisfaction. No joy. Only sadness. Because the truth had arrived far too late. Eventually she stood. Looking at everyone. I will give you what you came for. Hope immediately appeared on several faces. But after today. Her gaze swept across the room. I do not wish to see any of you again. Nobody argued. Nobody had the right. Then she turned. Walking toward the doors. Before leaving she spoke to her servants. See that our guests are cared for. The servants bowed. Yes, my lady. And Elena left. The room remained silent. Moments later, Rowan stood. Then turned toward Cale. Please. His voice broke. Just one conversation. Cale studied him. Then eventually nodded. Later that evening, Cale approached Elena once more. He wishes to speak with you. Elena immediately shook her head. No. Cale stepped closer. His voice gentle. One final conversation. She looked at him. Then sighed. Only because it was him. Only because she trusted him. Finally she agreed. That evening, Rowan stood waiting alone. Cale remained nearby. Far enough to give privacy. Close enough to remain present. Elena approached. Neither spoke immediately. Then Rowan's composure shattered. Tears filled his eyes. Years of guilt finally breaking free. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. Elena remained silent. Rowan continued. For everything. For not listening. For judging you. For believing lies. For taking our sons. The words nearly destroyed him. Tears streamed down his face. I failed you. His shoulders shook. I failed our family. Elena looked away. Because hearing it still hurt. Even now. After everything. Rowan took a shaky breath. Then whispered. One last request. Elena frowned. What? His voice broke completely. A hug. Silence. Long silence. Every instinct told her to refuse. Every wound told her to walk away. But then she glanced toward Cale. Her husband simply looked at her. Calm. Supportive. Trusting her choice. After several moments, Elena stepped forward. And allowed Rowan to embrace her. The moment his arms wrapped around her, he broke. Completely. Years of guilt. Years of grief. Years of regret. All exploded at once. He cried openly. Like a broken man. Like a father mourning his children. Like a husband mourning the life he destroyed. I'm sorry. Again. And again. And again. Elena said nothing. When the embrace ended, she stepped away. And with that, the chapter of their lives finally closed. That night, inside her chamber, Elena cried. Not because she still loved Rowan. She didn't. Her heart belonged to Cale. Completely. But once upon a time, she had loved Rowan deeply. And grief does not disappear simply because love ends. Cale never left her side. Not for a moment. He held her close. Allowed her tears. Allowed her pain. Allowed years of buried emotions to finally leave. And throughout the night, he simply loved her. Patiently. Gently. Quietly. The way he always had. The next morning, Elena provided the remedies, instructions, and healing gifts needed to help Rowan's kingdom recover. Then the delegation departed. And as they left, Elena never looked back. Because her future was no longer behind her. It was beside her. And his name was Cale. For the first time in many years, Elena was happy. Truly happy. Her days were filled with peace. Her nights were filled with love. And beside her stood the man who had never abandoned her. Alpha Cale. The husband who loved her without conditions. The husband who had chosen her every single day. Life continued moving forward. The kingdom flourished. Trade routes expanded. The healing centers Elena built became famous across the world. People traveled from distant lands seeking her wisdom. And through it all, Cale remained at her side. Then one morning, everything changed. Elena woke feeling strange. Very strange. The smell of breakfast made her uncomfortable. Her stomach felt unsettled. Her body felt unusually tired. At first she ignored it. Then the next day came. And the day after that. The symptoms remained. Soon, even Cale noticed. You need to rest. I'm fine. No, you're not. Elena rolled her eyes. Cale crossed his arms. The look on his face made it clear he wasn't convinced. For the next several days, he became impossible. If she carried something heavy, Cale appeared. If she worked too long, Cale appeared. If she skipped a meal, Cale appeared. If she looked tired, Cale appeared. At one point Elena jokingly asked, "Do you have servants secretly following me?" Cale looked completely serious. Several. Elena stared at him. You are joking. I am not. She immediately burst out laughing. And Kale finally smiled. Because seeing her smile remained one of his favorite things in the world. Eventually, the royal healers performed an examination. Several minutes passed. Then one healer suddenly gasped. Another smiled. A third looked ready to cry. Kale immediately became concerned. What happened? The healer looked at Elena. Then at Kale. And smiled. My Alpha. My Luna. Congratulations. Silence. Then. You are expecting a child. For a moment neither moved. Neither spoke. Then Elena's eyes filled with tears. Kale looked completely stunned. As though he had forgotten how to breathe. A child? The healer laughed softly. Yes. Kale looked at Elena. Elena looked at Kale. Then both started laughing and crying at the same time. The joy was overwhelming. After everything they had endured, life was giving them a new beginning. From that day forward, Kale became even more protective. If Elena stood up too quickly, Kale noticed. If she looked tired, Kale noticed. If she wanted to work for 10 hours, Kale absolutely refused. You need rest. Kale. Rest. Kale. Rest. Their servants found the entire situation extremely entertaining. Months passed. The pregnancy progressed beautifully. And then one day, the healers discovered something unexpected. Very unexpected. The healer looked up from the examination. Then smiled. My Luna. It appears there are 2 heartbeats. The room went silent. Elena blinked. Kale blinked. The healer laughed. Twins. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Kale slowly sat down. The news had completely overwhelmed him. Twins. Again. But this time, there was no fear. No accusations. No betrayal. Only joy. Only love. Only hope. 9 months later, the kingdom celebrated. The palace erupted with happiness. Because Elena gave birth to healthy twin sons. 2 beautiful boys. Strong. Healthy. Perfect. The entire kingdom rejoiced. The celebrations lasted for days. People danced in the streets. Merchants gave gifts. Warriors held feasts. Healers offered blessings. Everyone celebrated the arrival of the future heirs. And unlike the first time fate had given Elena twin sons, this time they were welcomed with love. Protected with love. Raised with love. The years continued passing. The kingdom grew larger. Stronger. More prosperous. Under Elena and Kale's leadership, it became one of the greatest kingdoms in history. Their people loved them. Their children admired them. And their story became legendary. Far away. News eventually reached Rowan. He was older now. Much older. One evening, a messenger delivered a report. Rowan read it quietly. A small smile appeared on his face. Elena was happy. Elena had twin sons. Elena's kingdom was thriving. For a long moment he simply stared at the report. Then he looked toward the sunset. And smiled again. A sad smile. But a genuine one. Because despite everything, he was glad she had found the life she deserved. The life he had failed to give her. And as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, Rowan whispered softly. You deserved better. The wind carried the words away. And somewhere far beyond his reach, Elena was finally living the future she once dreamed about. This story is more than romance. It is a story about trust, choices, consequences, and second chances. Here are some of the lessons hidden within Elena's journey. 1. Never judge without hearing both sides. Rowan's greatest mistake was condemning Elena without allowing her to explain herself. 2. Assumptions can destroy lives. Many tragedies begin when people assume instead of asking questions. 3. Trust must be protected. Trust is difficult to build and easy to destroy. 4. Not everyone giving advice has good intentions. Sometimes the people closest to power have their own hidden agendas. 5. A single decision can change everything. One rushed decision affected an entire kingdom for years. 6. True love is patient. Kale never forced Elena. He waited. He supported. He healed. 7. Healing takes time. Pain does not disappear overnight. Recovery is a journey. 8. Power should never replace justice. A leader must seek truth before passing judgment. 9. Kindness is never wasted. Elena continued helping others despite everything she suffered. 10. Consequences eventually arrive. Whether good or bad, our choices eventually return to us. A question for you. Have you ever judged someone before knowing the full story? Believed a rumor without verifying it? Allowed someone else's opinion to influence your decision? Refused to listen when someone needed to explain themselves? Assumed something was true without asking questions? And if you were in Rowan's position, would you have acted differently? What do you think was the biggest mistake in this story? And who do you think suffered the most, Elena, Rowan, or the twin sons who never got the chance to grow up? The conversation is yours.